This is the moment we've all been waiting for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Let's get ready to
Welcome to the Junkyard Pod. I'm Tony Pesta, joined by Corey Walsh. And listen, if you're clicking on this video, if you watch the game, you saw what just happened. The Cleveland Cavaliers, after playing a really weird game, like at no point in the game did I think that they deserved to win this, but then somehow, multiple times, I found myself thinking, oh, well, they're going to steal this one. Cool. They found a way to win it. And then just somehow managed to blow it 2 times in a row. At least the first regulation, the end of regulation, it is what it is. You know, Jalen Tyson misses a free throw. He's a young guy. He was in a big moment. All right, he split the free throws. They played decent defense on the Hawkhead shot. It was a good shot. Then they get into overtime. And Corey, we're just gonna jump straight into this final possession, and we can kind of work our way backwards through the rest of the game. But Donovan Mitchell hits an incredible shot to tie the game, an absolute miracle shot. It was, flashbacks to Chris Bosh, back to Ray Allen, running back behind the 3-point line, getting into the corner. We'll talk more about that shot in a second, because what happened afterwards is one of the most frustrating ways you can lose a basketball game. 0.4 seconds on the clock. It's a tie game. And the Miami Heat get a completely uncontested dunk at the rim, just literally before he even let go of the ball to pass it. You just knew that the Cavs lost the game. And, there's a lot to talk about. So, Corey, I just want to hear your reaction, like watching that last play. What the hell just happened?
Yeah, the Cavs really showed up there. No, I'm not going to be the person that comes on here being like, where the hell was Jarrett Allen on that possession? I'm just going to focus on the two main issues. I felt like were, one, DeAndre Hunter apparently has never seen a screen before, didn't know how to handle that, and two, I'm a little upset with Sam Merrill, honestly, because I think it was pretty obvious from the get-go that Hunter was going to at least get clipped by that screen, and instead of just kind of seeing where Hunter's man would be, he comes more towards where Davion Mitchell was going to be. Therefore, Wiggins basically just has open space. And at that point, it's all you. Oh, and also like Donovan Mitchell, I don't, if you're going to have someone contest that inbound pass, have it be, I don't know, someone with a wingspan, not Donovan Mitchell. But those were my 3 issues with players that were on the floor. I'm not going to spend my time deciding to cuss out Jarrett Allen for the 50th time.
I will say, I think Jarrett Allen should have been on the floor. I don't know why Johnny Bryant didn't have him out there. I understand that the second half was going a certain way, but man, it's just like you mentioned it, right? And I agree with everything you said right there. And I just run down the list of my issues with what went wrong in that final possession. And again, to be clear to everyone, the Cavs they were playing bad all game, right? Like, I'm not going to act like they lost strictly off of this play, but I mean, it was the final shot that went in at the buzzer. So first and foremost, there's 0.4 seconds on the clock. You know that, like, yes, you can get a jump shot off. Sure. It's like you can just barely squeeze it, but like, they're going to send at least one person to the rim, right? There's no world in which Miami doesn't send at least one guy to the rim for a potential lob. The fact that you have no one in the paint is mind-blowing. Like, you have 2 athletic 7-footers, Jarrett Allen, 6'10", 7 foot with the afro. We all know this. You have both of them on your roster. Neither one is fouled out, and you choose not to have one of them in the game, which, again, we can talk about. It is what it is. Like, Jarrett Allen wasn't that great in the second half, but this is one scenario where, like, this is a scenario where, like, when teams had like Taco Fall on their roster, they just put Taco Fall in the game, even though he hasn't played the previous 47 minutes. Because it's like, just put your big guys on the floor. Donovan Mitchell is guarding the inbounder. You might not even need, like, Donovan Mitchell maybe shouldn't even have been in the game. Maybe you just put Jarrett Allen in his place, or regardless of if Mitchell's in the game or not, whoever's guarding the inbounder, if you choose to guard the inbounder, because you actually don't even have to, there's only 0.4 seconds. He's not going to get the ball back. But if you do defend him, you put a big on him to try and disrupt the pass. Now, Donovan Mitchell does have long arms, but he's like 6'2", so it's only like a 6'7" wingspan. That's impressive, but like, you want a 7-footer defending the ball. Evan Mobley he's guarding Jaime Jaquez. He goes out towards the 3-point line in the corner. I guess that is what it is. You don't want to give up a completely open shot from the corner, but you would have liked to have someone in the paint. And then finally, I don't remember if I said this or not, but this was the first thing you said, and I agree. You just switch everything with 0.4 seconds left. Just switch everything. Why are you even asking DeAndre Hunter to fight over a screen? That's not even his game. He doesn't do that. He's not going to get over the screen. I think Davion Mitchell set the screen. It's like, yeah, he's not. That's not DeAndre Hunter's game. He's not a screen navigator. I'm not going to completely. I don't know if if Johnny Bryan or the Cavs philosophy, whatever may have happened there. I don't know if he said not to switch, if Sam Merrill blew it, or if Sam Merrill was just following the game plan. Either way, you got to switch in that situation, because the only way that you could have lost in this fashion is if you did all those things wrong. And somehow they did all those things wrong and they ended up blowing the game, which again, I don't think they deserved to win in the first place, but man, you were right there and you just completely blew it.
Yeah, the amount of times when I was writing this recap that I switched how it was going to go, I honestly felt like the Cavs had no right to win this game going into like the third quarter until Sam Merrill decided to go nuclear and bring the Cavs back. But like there were so many negatives to like leave this game out of, not even including, which I know we'll probably talk about, Darius Garland apparently re-aggravating a toe injury that was supposedly good enough for him to ramp up back into game shape. Only for him to basically jam it on the hardwood.
We'll definitely talk more about that at some point, because that's maybe the biggest takeaway from the game. But yeah, continue.
It just feels like this game was only within grasp because of the quality of play that the role players had in this game, in my opinion. There were good stretches from Tyson. There were good stretches from Ball. There were good stretches from Wade. I mean, and Merrill, obviously. But overall, like the Cavs only got to where they were because of the role players, and then the stars were the ones who kept them in the overtime conversation. Mobley hit clutch shots and Mitchell hit clutch shots, but at the end of the day, they lost because of the reason they were even in a close game, which was because of themselves.
Yeah. And I guess like just to kind of back up and talk about this, the way the game was unfolding before this now, I really felt like what we've seen kind of in the last week or so, all the way back to November 1st, I pulled the number for Fear the Sword. I was in the middle of writing the winners and losers. I think the Cavs are 19th in allowing points in transition. So they're the 11th worst team in the NBA at slowing teams down in transition since November 1st. I don't think it's a coincidence that they've struggled against these teams that like to play fast, run and gun style, similar to what the Pacers did. They struggled against the Chicago Bulls. They were getting blown out the water against Chicago for most of the first half there, somehow managed to rally back. Kind of similar against Miami here tonight, except Miami wasn't shooting like 90% from three, so the game was always somewhat within reach. But I do think this Cavs team just kind of struggles when they get into a track meet sometimes. Teams can really run wild on them, and I actually think we see like this, cause and effect where teams are running fast on them, the Cavs are missing shots, and that leads to the offense becoming really, really stagnant because, and this is what I was writing for Fear the Sword, is my kind of theory here is like the reason why the offense got so stagnant in the second quarter is because the Cavs were tired. Donovan Mitchell was tired. He's like, man, I'm running up and down. Like can I take 6 seconds to just dribble the air out the ball and catch my breath? Like, I kind of think that's what happens is the ball stops moving around because teams are just running like wild on them. And so it's hard to run your full offense and get into multiple actions and dribble, drive, kick out, relocate. You don't want to do all that when the other team is running like crazy on you and you're missing shots anyways. You start to revert to those bad habits. And I think we saw that, especially in the second quarter, but throughout the night, honestly. And then, like you said, I mean, this game, the Cavs had zero momentum. This was one of the worst vibe games I've seen from the Cavs in recent memory, where it's like Darius Garland has the injury, Kenny Atkinson gets ejected, Norman Powell's lighting us up. We're down like 12 points. And then 45 seconds later, it's a tie game because Sam Merrill hit 4 threes in a row, which was like, what the hell? Oh, sure, why not? He was 0 for 6 up until that point, and then he hits 4 in a row. And also, you mentioned it, but shout out to Dean Wade, too, because shortly before that, Dean hit back-to-back threes. And then after the Merrill explosion, you saw Lonzo Ball had a huge moment where he grabs 2 offensive rebounds, then hits a 3. Jalen Tyson hit at least 1 big 3, if I remember. He also had like an offensive rebound somewhere in there. And then you saw Donovan Mitchell start to get cooking again, Evan Mobley, and all of a sudden, DeAndre Hunter. It looked like maybe the Cavs were going to steal this one, and as we already mentioned, it didn't end up being that way, but it felt like such an ugly performance for like 39 minutes. And then all of a sudden, right at the end, they almost came back and pulled out a win, but it ended up where it probably should have.
Yeah, it just feels kind of like how I felt about the Cavs this whole season to this point. Nothing's really felt smooth outside of like 1 or 2 games this year, which is something that we really didn't say a lot last year. We're kind of seeing growing pains with this team, more so than I think even I kind of expected. I wasn't thinking that the Cavs are going to skate through this season like I think some people did, despite the fact that their core really hasn't changed. But I do think also the whole Darius Garland element of this team is something I didn't expect to be as impactful, both positively and negatively as it was. Obviously, Darius Garland being an all-star and being one of the best players on the team, it's obvious to say the team won't be as good without him, but it's almost like the offense just looks so much worse with him off, like not even involved. The first quarter, when Garland's playing, the offense looked probably its best in the first quarter. I felt like the team didn't really have those lapses of just ISO ball or just kind of everyone lagging around and kind of watching as one player decides to ISO up here. But once Garland left in the third quarter, and you could tell he aggravated it on that drive in the second quarter, it just turns into like, Donovan Mitchell, please save us. And then Mitchell has been so hyper efficient this year that it almost kind of, the results disguise the process of the wins that the Cavs have had to this point, where even in the games where Mitchell kind of goes off, I feel like I still leave games being like, well, this doesn't really seem like something that the Cavs can kind of use in the playoffs this year, which is what we're working towards. It's not going to be like, all right, Mitchell, please save us again, while we all kind of just lag around. And then also it's just an overall effort thing. I feel like the fact that we could sit here and I ask you, like, who do you feel like is the Cavs' most like energetic player? And it's going to be Jalen Tyson, probably 9 times out of 10, like, which is fine because like that I feel like is his greatest attribute right now. But the fact that Jalen Tyson is so noticeably giving more of an effort than anyone else on the floor outside of Donovan Mitchell, like consistently throughout the entire game, is a huge problem to me. I feel like the team was firing on all cylinders last year. You didn't really see, if you saw them go into lapses, they were more of lulls. Now it just feels like the Cavs for quarters at a time just go through these like lackadaisical efforts and just get really complacent with firing threes away. If I see Lonzo Ball willingly shoot more open threes when it's very evident the defense is leaving you open for a reason, I am going to lose my mind, because it's so polar opposite offensively in the, like, not even like in terms of results, but in terms of execution of what this team was last year. And not enough changed for me to think that it's justified.
Yeah, you said it when you mentioned like not having Darius Garland, we knew would impact this team, but it's been worse than I think we assumed. And to be honest with you, people are going to get annoyed with me, but I'm going to keep saying it all year. You lost, sure, Darius Garland isn't healthy and playing right now, but like also you lost Ty Jerome, and that mattered. It mattered. It really did. And I understand he hasn't even played yet this season. He's injured right now. Maybe last year was a fluke and he's never that good again. Maybe he just can't do it in the playoffs. Whatever you want to say about Ty Jerome, right? But the reality is the Cavs last season had a guard, a 6'5" guard who could come off their bench and score. If he plays 20 minutes, he's going to score 20 points. Like he was just an automatic microwave scorer every single night, just about. And that mattered. Not having that anymore is going to hurt them, as well as not having Darius healthy. And so I think, sure, Lonzo Ball has skills that we think are going to help them in the playoffs. But right now, listen, he shot 3 of 7 from 3 tonight. He ended up hitting a big one, but like he is nowhere near the offensive player that Ty Jerome was last year. And that hurts you big time in the regular season. And I honestly think it does lower your ceiling in the playoffs too, but that's a whole nother discussion. Lonzo has skills that could help them, the defense and everything. But I think having a guy like Ty Jerome, an advantage creator like that and a scorer, really matters. But focusing on Darius Garland now, because people don't want to hear me talk about Ty Jerome for the millionth time. Darius Garland, when he was playing this season, when he has been playing, the Cavs look not completely like their usual self, but like 90%, right? He plays and all of a sudden most things fall into place. I'm like, okay, it all makes sense. It makes sense again. Tonight, though, almost immediately something seemed off. Like everyone could kind of notice it. And I was wondering, is he just tired? Is it because he's still ramping up, getting used to playing, NBA basketball again after missing months and months? But at one point we saw very clearly he stubbed his toe, came back into the game, did not look right whatsoever, was limping around, and then he had to intentionally foul to leave the game. And now we know that presumably he has injured the same toe. I guess we haven't had that completely confirmed yet, but I don't know what to think of this because I don't know. I want to be clear. We're going to speculate a little bit, but like, we don't know. Did they rush him back, or was he actually just completely okay to return? And this was like a fluke re-aggravation that like they couldn't have accounted for, or did they rush him back? I don't know. Is this something that maybe he just jammed it a little bit and he's going to be fine a week from now? Maybe. Or is it going to be something that's going to linger throughout the rest of the season? It definitely concerns me. Again, I'm not a doctor, but it concerns me that he had surgery on this, like 5 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, and he plays, is this his third game, I think, and he immediately re-aggravates it. That is very concerning. And so hopefully we find out that he's okay and it was just a weird thing that, give him a week or two. I don't know what it could be. That's like me trying to be optimistic, but that's the story of the game to me, because immediately when that happened, I honestly stopped even caring about whether or not they won. I'm more concerned about what's going to be the future with Darius Garland now.
Yeah, and I know, again, not a doctor here for either of us, but I will say that, like, I remember when Garland got that surgery, they said it wasn't going to be something that would really, like, linger throughout the rest of his career. So the fact that it's the same toe again kind of leads me to wonder, because this injury was so fluky also, that it had to have been that they probably brought him back earlier than he probably should have been. And I feel like I understand probably why they did it. They were probably seeing what we were seeing. The offense did not look great, and Donovan was kind of really coaxing over all the issues that were like possession by possession, just because Mitchell was so hyper efficient. But Garland, the offense isn't even like one Garland away. It's just a whole mentality shift. Like, they went from being a team that basically was like the modern NBA offense of going to the rim or threes to feeling like they only can win a game if their threes are falling. And in Miami tonight was a great example that, like, when the shot's not falling, they are deeply in trouble. And yes, there were other factors to this game as well. Like the reffing, I would say, was not the strongest. But also, like,
for officiating.
how you also get free throws, you kind of drive to the basket, which is pretty crazy.
Very important.
And this team doesn't really like to do that these days. They really like to settle. Like, I know I keep bringing up Lonzo Ball, and it's not because I don't like Lonzo Ball, but it's like, I know Lonzo Ball is good at getting to the rim, and it feels like the Lonzo Ball that the Cavs are getting right now is someone who is just very afraid of contact and is just willing to take heat check threes for a guy who doesn't even make one to warrant the heat check.
Yeah.
But it's other players
literally
too.
The anti-Ty Jerome. I know I said I wasn't going to mention him again, but you know what? He just, like, Ty Jerome would take a heat check that wasn't warranted and he'd make it. Lonzo Ball is just, he's.
But Ty Jerome would also balance it out by getting to the rim.
And that's,
and this isn't something either where I'm saying like, oh, the Merrill extension and the Lonzo trade were mistakes. It's just that, like, you're not making up the offense in the sense of like the shot profiles, because right now you basically took a more complete offensive player and basically exchanged it for two players who were only willing to take 3-pointers. And I think Sam has done a really good job this year also with basically kind of being a pseudo distributor, as we're seeing. He's like one of the only players on this team that is willing to give the bigs any looks, especially off pick and roll. I think everyone else on this team doesn't seem to fathom what a pick and roll is these days, as it's just, oh, you're sending me a pick? That's really cool. I'm just going to pull up now that you gave me an ounce of airspace. But it's just something where, like, the shot profile right now for this whole team is out of whack. It's almost like Joe Mazzulla is in the room right now with this team, telling them they got to fire away from 3 70 times a game.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, how many, I know you have looked at the box score, so you might already know, but how many 3-pointers do you think they attempted tonight? Have you seen this?
No, but I know they were shooting like in the high 20s last time I saw.
They attempted 65 3-pointers tonight.
Oh,
65. That
Missoula would be
is,
proud.
yeah. I mean, they're currently attempting more threes per game than the Celtics did during their championship season. They're leading the NBA in 3-point attempts.
Oh, so the
65
title's
3-point
coming.
attempts is, yeah. I mean, hey, it worked for Boston. I guess it'll work for us. But the problem is we don't have that same personnel, right? Like, it's just this isn't a team that's built to play like that. And I have a point on this that I want to get to, but real quick, just to finish off the 3-point numbers, 65 3-point attempts tonight. That's more than half of their attempts in the game. 45 3-point attempts per game. That's basically half of their attempts per game. This is just like, I just don't understand. I feel like the identity that they had last year is not, they're not even trying to replicate that at times this year, where they don't get to the rim. They don't move the ball around like they used to. It's all 3-point shooting. The defense isn't the same. They're trying to play way more aggressive and get steals, and I just don't know if they have the personnel to really make that work. I know for whatever reason, maybe this will change after tonight because they gave up 140 points. They're like still top 10 in defensive rating on cleaning the glass. I don't know how that's possible because it doesn't feel like it, but it just seems like this team, I don't know if they overreacted to the Indiana series because they said that they weren't. Like, they said all throughout the summer and on media day, like, we're not going to overreact and change everything, but they kind of did. I mean, you changed your bench. You changed your bench out by, letting Ty Jerome walk, going into Lonzo Ball, getting Larry Nance Jr., extending Sam Merrill, who Sam Merrill's been great, but giving Jalen Tyson a bigger role. Those guys aren't replicating what Ty Jerome does. You're not playing the same offense with those guys. They're not the same type of creators. You're not playing the same type of defense you used to. I think the defense looks so much worse than it did last year. I think they're constantly falling behind, chasing the ball. I don't know what their identity is right now. And I felt good when Darius was out there because I thought a lot of it started to click back together again. But if he's injured, you don't have the same depth to replicate what Darius Garland brought. And in the regular season, that's a big concern. If you manage to get into the playoffs healthy, maybe we're looking back at this and saying, oh, yeah, remember when we were so scared about November, like a loss to the Miami Heat, who cares? Because we've seen them win a bunch of regular season games that didn't matter because they weren't healthy in the playoffs. So as long as they just get to the playoffs healthy, that's the most important thing. But right now, I know it's November, so we're not getting too worked up, but it's concerning. It's concerning.
Yeah, it's something too where it's like, yeah, okay, we don't need the Cavs to be the team they were last year in order to feel good about them heading into the postseason. But I feel like you have to at least have some form of an identity. And I feel like right now, the Cavs from game to game are so wildly different in terms, not even of like outcomes, but processing. It feels like they can't even necessarily like adapt their scheme game to game. They still don't even know exactly what they're running on offense. It just feels like you almost get like a randomizer each time. I think it's one thing to like head into the like this season from the Indiana series and think, okay, we're either going to shift some things schematically or we're going to shift some things personnel wise. And it feels like they're weirdly doing both at the same time. Cause like you said, like maybe the coaching staff in their minds thinks they're running the same schemes as they were last year with different personnel, but it just doesn't look like it on paper. And I don't know whether that's the players kind of not, maybe they have doubts of how last year ended and maybe they're like doing something on their end to where it's not flowing as well. But also I don't think this team is less talented on paper than it was last year. And it looked a lot smoother. So that's where I'm the most concerned. And I think it's something where I just feel like it's like the buy-in on ball movement for this team. It just is so static all the time. And I don't want to watch Mitchell have to be the reason that the Cavs win time after time.
I agree. And it's so weird. I think what you just said is perfect. Like when I look back at the offseason, I know I've been complaining a lot, but like I still think like, yeah, they made good moves. I'm like, I think this team, the talent on the roster looks better than it did last year. But this time last year, when the Cavs hadn't even lost their first game yet, they were 15-0. We knew they weren't going to replicate that. But when you look at the players who were so huge to that outside of the core four, Ty Jerome's not here. Karis LeVert's not here. George Niang's not here. Now, I know we had our problems with Niang, but like those are all plus offensive players. There's other issues with some of those players, especially Niang, right? Like I'm not saying that they made a mistake trading Niang, but those were all plus offensive players. When you look at the bench right now, like, let me just look at the players who played tonight. Craig Porter, Jalen Tyson, Dean Wade. Dean Wade was fine. I mean, he had a couple threes. That was really the best part of it. Outside of that, he was just normal Dean Wade. But even Lonzo Ball, who, like, we know he's a great playmaker and he can orchestrate things on offense, but none of those guys are capable, or I would say none of those guys are as threatening offensively as Ty Jerome, as Karis LeVert, and honestly, even George Niang when he was rolling. And so it is a different looking team. And I still think the move to get DeAndre Hunter was the right move. But it just, when we talk about the ball movement, like, that's not DeAndre Hunter. That's not his game. That's not Dean Wade. That's not, Sam Merrill's played good, but like, that's not Jalen Tyson. I do think that right now this team is struggling to find their identity. And I don't know if it's because they don't have the personnel to replicate that from last season. I know that they were never going to stay on that crazy 70-win pace, but it just feels significantly worse than I otherwise would have thought.
Yeah, it just feels like they're missing a lot of 3-level scorers. And I think, like, Karis LeVert had his issues. People would say, like, his shot was unreliable at times, but I feel more comfortable with how Karis LeVert performed at all 3 levels versus, say, Lonzo Ball does, or Craig Porter Jr. does, or even Jalen Tyson does. Like, I know Jalen Tyson's like the Cinderella story of this season, where it's like we're getting a lot out of someone that we weren't even sure would be vying for minutes at this point. But it's also like with Tyson, for all the positives, I feel like you still get a lot of negatives as well, to the point where I wouldn't say like Jalen Tyson is someone I would reliably want in a playoff series. He still feels like someone that is good on the right night. And I feel like the Cavs last season had a lot of players that on every night were going to contribute in some fashion because they were so multidimensional. Like Ty Jerome and Karis LeVert overlapped in such a good way for the Cavs offense that if Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell wasn't playing, it wasn't like there was this massive cavity in terms of like talent on the roster. And with this season, like without Darius Garland, with having to lean on the skill sets of like a Craig Porter Jr., Jalen Tyson, Lonzo Ball, and that same respect as what you would lean on with Darius, you're A, putting a lot more on Donovan Mitchell, and B, kind of exposing that we don't have the as many dynamic 3-level scorers as we did last year. And defenses know that. And we're seeing it with how they're guarding the Cavs this year.
I have one point on that I want to make, and then we'll transition to talk more about the game again. But I think this is all really important because I think we're seeing everything that we're talking about it showed itself tonight, right? And we talk about having multiple dynamic players, right? If we just go down the list of players that this team is either currently missing due to injury or lost over the from last season, Darius Garland, Max Strus, Ty Jerome, Karis LeVert, I believe that's the main 4 that I'm thinking of here. Those guys, one thing that they could do is they could get into the paint, put pressure on the rim, and kick it out. Right now, Max Strus isn't like a crazy slasher or anything, but he can, more specifically, those guys who get the defense into rotation. Let me put it that way. Those guys could dribble into the paint, get the defense into rotation, and the ball starts moving, and the Cavs find the opening, and they score. Right now, I know I already did this, but like Dean Wade, that's not his game. Lonzo Ball is not really getting to the rim. Like, he's not doing that. He's a good playmaker, but he's not getting the defense into rotation. Jalen Tyson has played good, but he's not a player who gets the defense into rotation. Craig Porter, some nights he does, most nights he doesn't. Sam Merrill has had a really great start to the season, but he's not a guy who puts pressure on the rim, right? He had 8 assists the other game running the pick and roll, but like, you're not going to be counting on that. And so we're just not seeing, this ties back into what we were saying of like, they're taking so many 3-pointers because they can't get into the paint. They can't, some nights they do, sometimes they get into the paint and it looks great, but other nights we have a game where they shoot 65 threes. And so to bring this back to this current game, I want to go down the list really quickly here with a few different players. One, Sam Merrill, if I'm doing this math correctly, I believe, so he started the game 0 for 6, then he hit 4 in a row, and then he went 0 for 6 the rest of the way. I just thought that was kind of funny looking at this. He was 4 of 16 tonight. Donovan Mitchell, look, man, he played the hero, right? I mean, 28 points, 15 rebounds, 8 assists, but he was 3 of 16 from deep. I thought his shot selection at times was pretty poor, especially towards the end of the game. We've had this conversation before when everything is kind of crumbling and Donovan Mitchell is going hero ball. He played 41 minutes and just kind of almost carries you to victory. it's kind of like you have to live and die with it because the rest of the team left him no choice. But like, we don't like that it comes down to this. It's awesome when it happens against Chicago and he pulls you out of, being down 19 and you end up winning. But against Miami, we can look at it and just say this process isn't sustainable.
Yeah, and it's like something too where I know there's this whole conversation of like we gotta keep Donovan Mitchell preserved for the playoffs. It's like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I know he was shooting hyper efficiently to start the year, but also now we're seeing what happens when Donovan Mitchell isn't really driving and the shot's not falling. So now we're just exposing the fact that no one is willing to go to the basket outside of the bigs and DeAndre Hunter a few times. And when we're kind of like putting all of our chips in on the playoffs while still not even necessarily figuring out what this offense looks like now, I feel like it's almost just like a mishandling of planning. You're already kind of building the house when you haven't even like cemented the studs at this point. So I just don't want to like hedge everything to the postseason when we're 11 games in and there's a lot of points with this team that are question marks.
Yeah. I want to talk about Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, and then if there's anything else we want to get in, we can do that. But I'll start with Jarrett Allen here very quickly because I'll be honest with you.
Be honest.
I know that he had a few, Jarrett Allen moments in the second half, but I don't understand why he was completely benched. Now, there is a reason, and I'll get to that in a second, but like he only played 21 minutes. He had 14 points. He shot 6 of 9, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. Like, I thought he was doing a really good job of picking his spots, like making himself available in the paint, catching and finishing like over and over again in the first half, especially when Darius Garland was out there and the ball was moving like it normally does. But then in the second half, the Cavs, as we mentioned, kind of just couldn't get into the paint. Jarrett Allen stops being as effective. And I honestly think that's more of a Cavs issue than a Jarrett Allen issue in this specific game. He was cooking when you could get him the ball. And it just felt like he wasn't out there anymore. And it's because the Cavs couldn't get into the paint and find him. And I also know like they pivoted to the one big lineup because Miami, as we said, they run in transition. They're going guns blazing. They're running as fast as they can. It's hard to play both the bigs together. And if you're only going to play one big, it's got to be Evan Mobley, the guy who's supposed to be your franchise cornerstone, who we'll talk about. I thought he was good tonight. But, like, of course, Jarrett Allen's going to get benched in that scenario. But I'm just like, man, it kind of sucks. He was being really effective tonight. And I thought maybe at some point you go back to him because, especially at the final possession of the game, like Jarrett Allen was good tonight, in my opinion. He was not like so horrendous that you can't have him on the floor for 0.4 seconds on defense. I had to get that off my chest. I genuinely thought Allen was very helpful when the Cavs were playing good basketball. And then as soon as the Cavs stopped playing good basketball, Jarrett Allen stopped looking helpful because it's just like, well, yeah, Jarrett Allen's not going to look good in a system where they're shooting 65 threes and he's playing next to Evan Mobley. It just doesn't make any sense. But I just had to defend Jarrett because I thought he was good tonight.
No, I thought Jarrett was good tonight too. I mean, you saw it in the first quarter when the Cavs offense looked its best. Jarrett Allen is always a beneficiary of good offense. And when the Cavs offense absolutely plateaued and fell off a cliff from the second quarter onward, Jarrett Allen's going to be the only one that suffers because you know who's going to get blamed? Jarrett Allen. When the 3-point shots don't fall, then the discussion then becomes, well, why isn't Jarrett Allen securing those second chance opportunities? I don't know, maybe because his teammates are deciding to huck up the ball 4 seconds into the shot clock as Jarrett Allen's then scrambling. So then Jarrett Allen is not deemed necessary on the floor. One big lineup, switch to Mobley, make it so Hunter or Wade or Tyson are basically the pseudo power forward. And now we're in a situation where Jarrett Allen is deemed useless, even though like all it takes is one of these other guards to learn how to throw an entry pass. And then Jarrett Allen suddenly is able to start doing something again. I don't think there's a world in which Jarrett Allen should have been played out of this game. I know it's going to be a discussion of like, oh, Jarrett's not aggressive enough. Jarrett's not this, Jarrett's not that. It's like also the Cavs aren't doing Jarrett Allen any like help here. It's not like we're having a conversation that Jarrett Allen's getting these opportunities and he's not making them. The first quarter was a great example of if you basically lay it out for Jarrett Allen, he will take what he can get. He's not someone who's going to overstep. To the point where it's like, if you're going to have Jarrett Allen just basically be the second chance opportunity guy, then
It's not
you're
his
also
game.
wasting Jarrett Allen's time. Also,
he's never been that type of player, and it's just I really think like it's so easy to blame Jarrett Allen because there are plenty of times where like he's easy to blame. But tonight, like I really think this is an indicator of the Cavs process being bad. The fact that he, wasn't able to be on the floor, partly because again the way Miami was playing, but like the blaming Jarrett Allen for this just feels unfair. The Cavs obliterated Miami on the glass. Like it's not like they were getting out rebounded and Jarrett Allen's getting shoved around. They had 26 offensive rebounds. That's 14 more than Miami, and they still lost. They had 26 offensive rebounds. That's crazy. Jarrett Allen was 6 for 9. When you were getting him the ball, he was finishing basically everything. Thought his defense was fine. It's just, again, Miami plays fast, so you only went with one big, and Cavs stopped finding Allen, so he stopped being as effective. I think, I made this point in one of our pods at the start of the season, I think, and it's not true 100% of the time, but when the Cavs are playing really good, more often than not, Jarrett Allen is a part of that. When they're playing really bad, more often than not, you're looking at Jarrett Allen. It's like, whoa, he sucks tonight. But it's like, well, everything else about the Cavs also sucks, but Allen is just the one who is the most glaring when things are going wrong because it's easy to pick on the big guy who isn't getting rebounds and isn't, when you look at the box score and it's like 4 points, 4 rebounds, it's like, whoa, Jarrett Allen sucked. And it's like, well, the Cavs were jacking up 3-pointers, long misses. They weren't getting him the ball. Like, of course it's going to look bad. And again, there are plenty of times where Jarrett Allen also is just not good. But I think more often than not, he's the scapegoat. And a night like tonight, I just don't think it's fair to blame him.
No. And then just look at Twitter discourse the minute that 0.4 second play happened. The immediate conversation is like, why isn't Jarrett Allen out there? And it's like, yeah, because Jarrett Allen saw that and was like, I'm going to sit this one out. Thanks, though.
Listen, I don't know what went into that decision. Kenny Atkinson getting tossed. Maybe Kenny would have played Jarrett Allen. I don't know. It was a weird game. The last thing that I want to talk about here is Evan Mobley, because again, when you have to pivot to the one big lineup, you're going to pivot to your, the max player, Evan Mobley. And I honestly thought he played really good. I also think that he was a victim of not getting the ball enough down the stretch, which is a little bit concerning, but 21 points. He had 9 offensive rebounds, which is wild. 9 offensive rebounds, 2 defensive rebounds. Weird game, like I said, but 5 assists as well. Shot 8 of 15, hit a huge 3-pointer at one point, and then hit another huge 3-pointer that didn't count because Johnny Bryant called timeout. Donovan Mitchell looked like he was falling out of bounds. I kind of get why he called the timeout, but also when it's such a helter-skelter play like that and you're the team that's down by 3, you almost just want to ride with the chaos because that's where you'll generate an opening. We saw immediately after the timeout, Miami just fouled up 3, which is a sin. It's a basketball, but it's like, they're going to foul you if you let them set up. So it's almost better to just let that chaos happen. Anyways, Mobley I thought was really good. And I thought that down the stretch, especially in the fourth quarter, Mitchell was having a really hard time getting to the rim, as we've said a million times so far tonight. No one else was generating offense. That's why you have Evan Mobley. That's what we talk about. We've literally spent like 2 straight years talking about this. The Cavs talked about it all summer. This is where you give Evan Mobley the ball. And they did it, I think, one time, and he immediately scored an N1. And then they didn't do it again. And I'm just like, why? Why are we still having this conversation? I thought they should have gone to Evan Mobley down the stretch because Miami had nobody to guard him. Khalil Ware's a good defender, but like so many wings that he could get a mismatch on and go at. And he was having success. I wish Evan Mobley would have gotten the ball more.
Yeah, I feel like it was something too where I know Mobley was like hunting for a mismatch. I can't remember if it was the end of the fourth or near the end of overtime, but it was Mobley had a mismatch, and instead of going at the Heat player, him and Sam Merrill were in like the most active game of catch I've ever seen in my life, where they were just passing it back and forth. And I'm like, oh my God, Mobley has the advantage, as like Sam Merrill to that point was like 0 for 6 if it was in overtime. And I was just like, what are we doing here? Mobley, like to end the fourth quarter, had the 3 and the block. And then in overtime, he had the clutch mid-range jumper that then wasn't the free throw wasn't deemed a goal basket interference.
Close.
Even though
can I also
let's
it
also
like
just
on the rim.
Yeah, let's take a minute to like talk about how Brad 2 seconds in goes like, oh yeah, that's definitely basket interference. And then when they go on the call, they're like, yeah, it wasn't basket interference. He's like, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. And I'm just like, okay, Brad, can you just like pick one side for once in your life, please? But it's just something where Mobley, when he had the opportunities, I feel like did a really good job. It was just like you said, like the Cavs like want Mobley to be aggressive at the weirdest times. It's like Mobley is hyper aggressive in the middle of the third quarter. He's hunting his own shots. And then the fourth quarter comes and you're like, all right, it's time for Mobley to cook here. And it's like, you know what? How about I'm as selective as I've been the entire game? And Mobley, to his credit, knocked down the opportunities he took. But at the same time, it's like if we know that Mitchell is just going to throw up 9-1-1 threes as the Cavs last ditch offensive efforts, I'd rather Mobley just try to hunt for a mismatch here because the Heat were running smaller to where Mobley was always going to have an advantage if they just switched him off of Khalil Ware. So I just don't, like you said, it's confounding. I'm befuzzled and I don't appreciate it.
We got to get the thesaurus out, man. We need all the adjectives here because I'm baffled. I'm perplexed. I don't understand why we're still having these conversations. Yes. It's just, and you know what? I made this point, I think, on the last pod with Jackson. And it's like, Evan Mobley, we want to increase his usage. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to just give him the ball on the block in a mismatch or just give him the ball, let him bring it up the floor. You can run pick and roll with Evan Mobley too and just give him the ball in the short roll. And I'll be able to check this. We're recording this right after the game. I don't know if they ran a single Mitchell Mobley pick and roll in overtime. And that it just seems so weird to me because what is like every NBA team now at the end of games, what do? It's pick and roll with your two best players. It's almost
look at Murray and Jokic. Why not replicate it?
Jokic. It's you always see that. Every team does that basically that has like a big guard combo. And for some reason, the Cavs, I feel like they don't do it that often. And I don't believe they did it in overtime tonight. They did it with Hunter and Mobley a few times, which I thought was interesting because Hunter is not like a pick and roll facilitator. It worked. Hunter scored a couple points, but I'm just like, go to the pick and roll. If they send two to Donovan Mitchell, you give it to Mobley at the free throw line, and now he's making the play, whether it's a pass or a shot. I want to see Evan Mobley decide games in the short roll because maybe he's not ready to bring the ball up the floor and be a Giannis type player on a nightly basis. We see flashes, but it doesn't look fully polished yet. Maybe we can't do that. But you know what I feel pretty comfortable in is Mobley creating out of the short roll. He's awesome at it every time he does it. And it's like it's always there. And for some reason, the Cavs, I feel like, don't do it enough.
You know what I really don't love is when it's a pick and roll, when I know that whatever player is touching the ball at the beginning of the pick and roll is going to be the one that shoots it at the end of the pick and roll. And that is what the DeAndre Hunter and Evan Mobley pick and roll is. It's Hunter being like, all right, let me set this bad boy up. Mobley goes for the roll and he's like, oh, thanks for taking that man with you. I'm just going to pull up a midi. And then that's it every time.
I think that's how 3 out of the 4 pick and rolls went between Hunter and Mobley. There was one, I think the mid-range shot that Mobley hit, Hunter did give him the ball. But the other 3 times Hunter shot it. And you know what? I think he made at least 2 of them.
No, Hunter was good tonight. I don't want to like make it seem like I'm like crapping all over Hunter. But it's also like when Hunter has the ball 9 times out of 10, that ball's not leaving in his hands.
Yeah, he's not facilitating. And to kind of tie this back together to what we said at the top, and we'll wrap the episode. Obviously, not having Darius Garland plays a role into this because you know who's your best pick and roll facilitator is Darius Garland. So I hope that he's not going to miss too much time. I hope that, you know, the Cavs can look better when he's not on the court because there's enough talent on this roster to still be a really good team without Darius Garland. And they have shown it, hints here and there. It's early. It's only November 10th. I know there's probably going to be someone in the comments who's like, why are you guys complaining so much November 10th? We're recording immediately after the Cavs just lost at the buzzer by an uncontested dunk. We're allowed to vent a little bit, all right? We can be a little annoyed. That was a bad loss, and we're a little upset. We understand that it's only November, but this is what we're doing. We're getting our takes off, you know?
Yeah, and also, like, you know what? It's fine to say the Cavs haven't looked too great through their first few games. Like, we have championship aspirations. And I know this isn't going to be like, well, they're not going to win a title because did you see them on November 10th?
Yeah.
But it's also at the same time, like you build a sample size through games like this. And it's something where I feel like it is a game that could be kind of like a a point where the Cavs kind of grow from, even if they end up losing games like this. I mean, this is a game where nothing I feel like really went in their favor outside of like 2 5-minute stretches. So the fact that they narrowly won this game is also like a testament to the type of resilience this team has had even through the first 11 games of the season.
Yeah, like you want to see good habits, you want to see good process. I do think this team has been resilient, right? Like fighting back tonight, fighting back against Chicago. They're, I believe, 7-4 now, right? Like we're not saying the world's falling. I just want to be clear because I know someone, hopefully they haven't commented it yet. They probably have already left the comment by the time they get to this part. But listen, guys, we're just venting. We're just pointing out the habits, the areas where we want them to get better. Hopefully Wednesday, if we do a pod, we'll be doing the exact opposite. Maybe they'll just crush the Heat and it'll be an amazing game. But until then, any last takes?
You got none from me.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Junkyard Pod. I want to say thank you to everyone for watching or listening. Hopefully the Cavs bounce back on Wednesday and we'll see you there. So I agree. Go Cavs.
I agree. Go Cavs. Bob, thanks for the kind words.